Welcome to
the Self Triumph Podcast,
where we believe that you are unlimited beyond your beliefs.
where you find purpose in the pain, and through that you find your inner wisdom.
Which gives you perspective on how you can change your life, become committed to maturity and responsibility.
Join us to discover more about your inner journey. G'day everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Self Triumph Podcast. Today we've got an awesome guest, Eric McAlister. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, right on the mark.
Yeah, sweet. So how are you going today, mate?
Yeah, doing really well, enjoying the nice weather. It's always good. So happy to be on. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah. So your story's really inspired me personally. I'm sure it's inspired Liam and many others. You were from a professional basketball player to now speaking about mental health. It's like an amazing story. So could you just tell us, however in detail you want, like your zero to hero story and a bit of your background?
Yeah. So I'm from the States. I'm from New Jersey. I was born and raised there. And I was, growing up, I was always an athlete and played multiple sports and kind of, I guess, excelled in most of them. And I actually wasn't playing basketball like at a competitive level at the time. And I stopped that when I was about 12, 13 years old, and I focused on American football, and that was my love. My dad played when I was a kid, and I wanted to be like my dad. And yeah, football just consumed my family really. And so, I was 15 years old at the time. So I was in year 10, and I kind of started to hit a growth spurt, and I was about 5'9" to start year 11. And then I shot up to 6'4" by the end of the year. Nice. And then I grew another few inches the next year and another inch or so after that. And my senior year, my mom really pushed me to get into basketball because, I always had a natural knack for it. It just wasn't what I loved. And so, football just wasn't the road that my life was going to go down. And I made the transition to play some basketball, and it worked out pretty well for me. I landed a college scholarship. So I played at Stony Brook University for, technically I was there 5 years. So the first year I sat out, and I was practicing with the team, just not playing in games. So they referred to it as a redshirt year, and then preserves your eligibility. And I played the next 4 years. I was the team captain my senior year. We had some ups and downs that year, but generally speaking, in my college career, it was cool because in the first couple of years I barely played at all. And, I finished off as the team captain. It wasn't handed to me. Nothing was given to me in my time there. And, that really taught me a lot about work and kind of overcoming a lot of adversity at that time. And so in 2014, I graduated, and I headed off to play in Europe. So I played 4 years in Europe. During that time, in 2016, I lost my mom to cancer. I was actually playing here in Australia and kind of a between season. And, my brother called me, and she had been sick for a while, and it was bad. And I was under, I was well aware of the situation. So, I lost my mom, and kind of sent me in this spiral of depression, and just really kind of got out of who I was and who I am. And so, for me, it was a bit of growth there through the rocks, and just, really difficult time. And when I was playing in Luxembourg in 2017, and I mid game, I'm fit, I'm healthy. Mid game, I just collapsed on the court, and my heart just didn't, kind of gave out, and it was pounding. Yeah. And so by the time the paramedics got to me and they slowed it down, and they the initial read was that my blood pressure was 2 points from me not being alive anymore. And Yeah, yeah. And I was going through a tough time mentally at that point, and I was kind of just bouncing around the globe trying to find myself a little bit. And I remember in that moment, I'm laying on the floor and I'm looking up at the stadium lights, and like I'm kind of in and out of consciousness, and I'm looking up at the light, and all I remember thinking was just like, it's okay to let go. And that was kind of the first moment for me to be like, whoa, like really checked in with my own mental health. And so, for me, that was the first time I guess I acknowledged even being depressed. I had a family friend say it to me a few months prior, and I got pretty defensive about it, and couldn't be me. I'm a professional athlete, like can't be that bad. And so I got subsequently the team let me go for health reasons and sent me back to the States. And I was there for about 2 months, and I had doctors telling me I'll never play again. And that was weighing really heavily on me because at the time I was 27. And I'm kind of like, well, how can this be? I'm only 27. I still have at least a few years. I haven't even begun to thought about post basketball yet. And, I was starting to talk to a coach out here in Australia, and most coaches are always really optimistic with you, but this guy was really real. He knew the caliber of player I was. He didn't really have the budget to sign me. He was very upfront about that. He was trying to make things work. And, listening to, I guess, the verbiage in comparison to my other negotiations, it's very negative in my mind. And I was lost. I wasn't even fit to play, and I'm kind of negotiating out this contract, just doing whatever I can to survive. And I just got to a really low point because I didn't think it was going to happen. So I decided I was going to commit suicide, and I went to go through with it. And at the very last second, I just got this message that this isn't right. It's not your time. Don't do this. So kind of sat there, and the thought kept going through my head over and over and over. And so I walked back to the house, and the very next day, this coach calls me and says, all right, we got it done. I have a contract offer for you.
Oh,
and
shit.
So about a month later, I boarded a plane, and I was here in Australia. And I've been here since. I was, lucky enough to meet my fiance and play a few more seasons. I've had opportunities in the NBL, kind of being in with some teams. And I was in Adelaide this past October it was. And, I'm there. I have an opportunity, and, things are not going well for me. First day I tore a ligament in my ankle, and, I'm struggling. I have, a busted up toe, and I'm just all banged up, and I'm miserable. And Carly and I are living in this service to hotel that the team has put us up in. And, we're just sitting there, and I'm miserable because I can't get my foot in the shoe. I don't know what I'm going to do. And, Carly was just like, you should tell people your story, because it's going to resonate with people. It's going to hit people, and people have no idea, because I was very guarded, very shielded. And so eventually I started writing about it, and people just took to it, and it's kind of really changed the trajectory of my life, and kind of working around the mind and mental health. And I guess doing my part to get people unstuck of what's got them stuck.
Wow. That's an incredible story. That's massive. Yeah. That's awesome. So I'd love to, are you comfortable talking about the whole suicidal part?
Yeah, of course.
Because I think Cody and myself can really relate to that, because we've talked about this between us, that we've both experienced similar things around suicide, right? I would love to just see, like, what was your mindset like around that time? Like, what got you to that low point?
Yeah, I think like it actually stems even further back. Like even as a child, like I never felt like I fit in anywhere. I always was friendly with a lot of people, but I never belonged to a certain group. I was always the one to bounce around and, kind of the bridge between other groups. Yeah. And so I guess like when you don't feel like you fit in, and then you take a career path that has you, don't get me wrong, bouncing around the globe, playing, as I was saying before, a children's game, for a living is certainly not a bad way to go about it. But when you're living in another country that you don't even speak the same language for 9-10 months a year, and then you go home for 2 months, you lose touch with people, you miss out on things, you miss weddings, you miss births of your friends' children, things like that. And so I never felt like I really fit in. And I think that isolation was like internally is what really started to drive me downwards. For me, I've been through a lot in my life. And this like adversity is not something that really phases me, to, I guess, generally speaking. But when your identity is wrapped in an athlete, and specialist doctors are telling you that you can't be that anymore, it really just kind of sinks in, and you're just so lost. And the one thing that you could always count on is no longer there for you. So I think I just got really low. And the day before I was going to go through with it, I actually reached out to a friend. And this is a story that I always feel compelled to tell, because he had no idea what was going on in my life. Like I said, I was very closed off. I was never one to communicate. And so I reached out to him and I told him what was going on. And he knew, I guess, my mental health was in a bad way. And, he was there for me when I lost my mom, and he saw really the decline that I went through. But I reached out to him. I told him, look, man, I'm having these thoughts. Like, I think I'm going to kill myself. And he was like, he didn't really know what to say. And he was like, we're going to get through it. And now in retrospect, I really look back at that moment, and because we don't talk about this and because there's no normality over it, what do you say to somebody when they come to you with that? Oh, it's going to be okay. We'll get through this. But that's like the last thing you want to hear in that moment. You want something more constructive and maybe a bit of an avenue on the way out. And I know for me, that was it was just something that, I don't want to say triggered me, but it certainly wasn't what I was looking for in that moment. And I think that's a big thing I would like to be able to change with people. And I guess having more normal conversations around mental health, and especially on the men's side, where society kind of has us in a direction of, you're supposed to act a certain way and be a certain way, but we're still human and we still have feelings and emotions. And to normalize talking about that doesn't make you a coward. It's cowardly not to have that discussion.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree more. That's incredible.
So, is that what you're doing now? Are you offering help to some people that are dealing with mental health issues like suicide and things like that?
Yeah, look, I guess my pathway at the moment is very fluid, because, like I said, this came on very spur of the moment, and it came through writing a blog and joining the academy and and going through my mentorship hours and starting to work with people. Now, there is a place for clinical psychology, and there's no doubt about that. And, I guess counselors are trained to have those really difficult discussions when people can go one way or another. And there's always a place for that. I think what I'm more trying to do is working with people before that point, because we always think of mental health as depression and suicide, but what about the breakdowns that happen before that? And when I was trying to frame this kind of work late last year, Carly came up with a phenomenal analogy, and she said, well, as athletes, we work on our bodies to not break down and to perform at the best, but why aren't we doing that with our minds? So I think part of me is trying to really create a program and a way that people can really work on themselves before we get to that point.
Yeah, wow. That's awesome. I really like that analogy as well. That was cool.
I wish I could take credit for it, but
Probably good.
Yeah. 50-50 copyright.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I mean, like, I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. And I love the fact that you're being so vulnerable and so, like, you're trying to create this space for men and women and just people to really work on themselves before the disaster, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. Like, because it seems like being an athlete, right? You've always had to have this level of discipline, right? To train, to get up every morning, or eat well, exercise, look after yourself. What's that been like your whole life? Like, because basically, like you said, that you're pretty much been an athlete your whole life, right?
Yeah. So I guess early on it was easy because it was what I loved to do. And um, when I first went to college, I had never really been coached because, like I said, I wasn't playing basketball at a competitive level. And I'm from a really small town where it's not like there's an abundance of knowledge just laying around. And, I went into college so far behind the rest of my teammates in the same year that I had so much catching up to do. And the coaches acknowledged that. And that was never like, a breaking point for them or anything. They saw the ability that I had from a natural point, but I had no idea what I was doing. And I learned very quickly what working hard really is. And I really need to attribute that to the strength and conditioning coach at the time, Coach Van Dyke, because there were times that I know he wanted to kill me. There is no doubt he wanted to like really just like grab me and shake me. But he was the one that really helped build up my mental toughness and my resilience and taught me how to break things down to meaningful and really easy to conquer methods. And once hard work and dedication just becomes routine at one point, and you can carry that to any area of your life. So I always look at the gym and, January 1st, it is packed out, and it always is. February 1st, there's half of that. By March, it's the same old. And I think it's about dedication and building that consistent pattern.
Yeah.
And that's what gets us ready to overcome all the adversity that we face.
How do you think that's helped with your mental health stuff, especially with the work that you want to get into now,
Yeah, I think it's gone a long way for me. I guess sometimes I get a bit underconfident just because I don't have a ton of experience in business and I don't have, the education behind it. It's more, like I have a degree with human resource management, but until you're in the field, you can read all the books and do all the study you want, but I have no experience around it. And so I guess there's a bit of underconfidence, but if you know that you're willing to put the work in and you're willing to learn and make mistakes, and I think it's about sacrificing identity sometimes as well. And sometimes that athlete identity carries over, and maybe I go into a meeting, a bit more forceful than I should, but it's just, I have one mindset, and it's to get things done. And so I expect results immediately. So I get frustrated and impatient, but it's a learning process, certainly, around the business and mental health and things of that nature. But I do feel like when it comes to real life advice and how to overcome adversity and stay persistent, I think, I have as much knowledge around that as anybody. And I guess that's what gives me the confidence to work with people. I guess it's the other stuff that is going to take some time coming along.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it sounds like your skills can transfer into almost any field. But I'd be interested to know, like, what do you see? Obviously, there must have been a lot of problems from personal experience around mental health in the sporting field. But what sort of problems do you see in men and women, maybe our age and younger, or even older, that you think maybe no one's talking about, or people need some of your wisdom?
Yeah, I think in terms of athletes, there's just everything needs to be perfect all the time, and if you're not first, you're last. And we never celebrate the small wins, and I think society is starting to shift that way as well. And if you think about social media, so you're scrolling through Instagram and you're seeing people achieving things, buying houses, getting married, having children, whatever the case may be. But you're sitting there at your lowest point because you're sitting there on the couch. You probably don't feel great about yourself because, when you're out doing things for yourself, you're not scrolling your Instagram timeline. So I think there's always that, if I'm not doing it right now, I'm not doing enough and I'm not succeeding. So I think that's part of the problem. I think a really cool part of my journey is I've been all over the world. So I've seen the Nordic countries. I've been to, the south of Europe. I've been, over to Russia. I've been all over the place. But mental health persists everywhere. And it's not just one thing that's holding everybody back. And to be able to identify those things and kind of, pull them apart and try to find the solution is what really drives me. And so I think, Cody, kind of to come full circle on your question, I think it's everybody has their issues. And I think we need not to compare somebody's issues to be more complex or worse off. And it's about just accepting and kind of owning what your issues are. And then we can create a program around that and a pathway to a healthier mind state.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah. Do you think that the sporting field is so concerned with just like results because of a society pressure? Like, is that why we love sports so much? We're all trying to just beat each other and win rather than maybe collaborate and see if we can all help each other. I don't know.
Yeah, look, I think I've actually thought about this from time to time myself. And I think really what it comes down to, it's like human nature to have to beat the next person, because if you think about like back to like the beginning of man, it was kill or be killed. You had to find a way to survive. And I think like most sport, especially contact sports, brings out that innate nature within us. And I think that's where competitiveness and it's almost like survival instinct kicks in, because when you're on the floor, like in basketball, you're just reacting nonstop. And basketball is a very fast-paced game. So there's not much time to think things through. And I think that's why we do start to get around sports, to be honest. I think it kind of satisfies that innate nature that we don't really get to satisfy in other areas of society. So I think that's part of it. I think in terms of athletes and coaches, and I think the mentality around it is incredibly unhealthy. And just being in some of the locker rooms, I have been in some of the meetings and film sessions and whatever the case may be, you hear negativity so much more than positivity, because positivity correlates to just, finding comfort and not wanting more. And so it's always about more. And I remember like in college, as an example, it was my redshirt year. Like I said, it was very new to me to be in this higher level environment. I had future NBA player on our team and, all these kinds of things. And we're sitting there and we had just won the night before. We won by 15 points, right? And conference game, I'm thinking, oh, coach is going to be happy. And we go into the film room and we just get shredded for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And like you would think 15 points, we won. What's the problem here?
Yeah.
And at the time I didn't really understand, but as my career went on, I understood, because they're getting on top of those mistakes that didn't hurt you right there, but will hurt you down the road. And I think even when you win the possession, you get the stop or you score, if it's not perfect, it's still not right. And I think that's something that athletes, I know for myself, I've taken. If it's not perfect, it's not right. And all I can see is the negativity in it.
How have you broken that? Like, that's tough, because if that's your career and that's your identity, that's massive, right? Like, if it's not perfect, definitely. It's not right. That's crazy. And because if like, then procrastination might come in, or maybe not, I don't know. But like, if you are trying to achieve something and if one thing's wrong, does it stop you from doing it? Or do you just be like, fuck it, I'm doing it anyway?
Yeah, look, it's a fine line. And it's, I guess for me, to be honest with you guys, I'm far from breaking that pattern. And if it's not perfect, like it has to come down and I have to perfect it. And failure is another thing that athletes, generally speaking, do not handle well. And I am a very, very sore loser. And so when I kind of hit a roadblock and I fail, there's that moment of just internal destruction and you're just pulling yourself apart. But then I guess over time you learn how to take those pieces and light a fire and move back forward and kind of learn the lessons that you need to. So I guess there is benefit to it, but finding the balance of the healthy relationship with it is something that personally I'm still working on. I guess I've understood it, but to accept it is now my next mission with it.
Yeah. See, like that's cool. Talk about failure just quickly. Like I signed up for the just local soccer team this year, right? The Tuggeranong soccer team. And we were so shit. We didn't play. We didn't win one game. Literally not one game. And we lost by a minimum of 5 points. And by the end of the season, people who weren't handling the failure well, they were just fucking cranky. They were pissed off. And our last game, there was a full like team fight and everything. It was chaos. And I think that's because they can't handle the failure, right?
Yeah.
Like they're so afraid to fail, but that's all that we were seeing is the failure. But in my mind, I was just having fun. I was like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just here to run and kick a ball. Cool. You know?
Yeah. And I think it's just learning to accept it has to come with experience. Because if you don't care about failure, then you don't care about what you're doing. I'm a firm believer in that. And so I think like, for me, I had a season, my team, we went 3-31 and we lost some close games. We got blown out of most games. You can point to 1,000,001 reasons as to why we didn't find success. And I know that season did my head in and I really struggled with that. But, it was looking back at it, it's nothing but a learning lesson. And, you can take those, but at the end of the day, each and every game we got off the mat, we went back to fight the next night and whatever will happen will happen. And I think, that unhealthy understanding of how to deal with failure is part of the problem. But I had a teammate in France and he was an older guard. He was kind of the leader, but had a storied career. He wasn't really invested as much as he used to be. And, one day I was like all pissed off after practice and he was just like, I don't care about this anymore. Just having a temper tantrum about something. And he's just like, no, you're mad. So you do care. And I remember that moment has always stuck with me. So if you care about the failure, it means you still care about what you're trying to achieve.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Wow.
That's such a good point.
I love that.
That's so interesting. Yeah. There's been a lot of like really interesting one-liners and it's amazing the crossover between sport and success. So I think like, even though maybe you haven't had experience in business, you've had experience in basic fundamental skills, like you were saying, persistence, hard work, showing up when you don't want to, dealing with failure, taking on feedback, like all of those things cross over to anything like relationship, success, business, even like finding yourself, like there's all, because you can't just like find yourself in a day. Like it takes constant work, right? But I wonder if you want to talk about like men and their desire to be successful in quotes. Every man, like every young boy looks at their dad and thinks, I want to be like my dad, right? And then we look at society and people like you are the people we love, people, famous athletes and musicians and stuff. When you became successful, let's say, when you were at the peak of your career, like how are you feeling? What was that like for you?
Yeah, look, it's actually really interesting because it's never enough. You always feel like you can do more, and um, you always think that tomorrow will come. And my first professional deal was for really nothing. It was, it was a rookie. That's how it goes over there. And I took that, and I worked my way up year after year, and I started to really solidify myself. And um, when you get to, I guess, the height financially and the monetary level, but you always think it'll come the next year and the next year, and you don't take it for what it is, and you just take the world for granted. And like for me, I was 26 before I had to start paying rent, because I went to college, I had room and board for free. I went overseas, my apartment's always paid for.
It's not bad.
Yeah, look, but then like you kind of hit the real world at times, and it's like, oh my God, I have to, what is this? Like, and it's just,
Electricity and gas. What the fuck?
yeah, you're just like, man, I wish I would have run up those heater bills a little bit more overseas. But like, I guess generally speaking, that you always want more out of it, because you don't ever think that it's going to be enough. And you always, like, as an American, so every team in each league is a little bit different, but generally speaking, there's only 2, 3, maybe 4 import spots that are allowed per team. So it's not like there's a whole bunch of Americans that are just shipped over. It's so when you don't play well in 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, all of a sudden they're giving you a call into the office and you're on the next flight home. And so when you have that kind of pressure on you every single day, it teaches you a lot, but you also lose sight of a lot of things, and you lose sight of what's important. The skinny little kid that comes from small town New Jersey that finally got to his goal, but he can't even enjoy it because he's like, well, what if it gets taken from me? So I didn't do a really good job of staying in the moment and being present, and appreciating the small wins. Like I said, that first deal wasn't for much, but it was still an accomplishment. But I didn't see it that way. I saw it as, oh, that's not enough. I need more. And then you work your way and you work your way, but it's never enough. So that, I guess, would be my advice, would just be to settle in and kind of enjoy the small wins more.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, you've got this mentality, obviously, of the perfectionist and the overachiever as well. Like, you go above and beyond. Like, what's next for you? What's the next plan for you now? What do you want to create in your life to either help people or just for yourself, or like some massive goal that you're working towards? What's happening?
Yeah, for me, I've just absolutely gained this passion for how the mind works over the past, I would say, 18 months or so. And for me, I want to be working with people, and really, I've written a book kind of around emotions, and then tying that, how we can use them to success. And I use my own journey, and writing is something that I found an ability in, and I've really enjoyed doing it. And it's something that I'm going to pursue moving forward, write a few more books and see how those go. But for me, I want to work with people. I want people to gain an understanding of how to get out of their own way, in a sense. And, I know Jason talks about liberation and just kind of breaking free of what's holding us back. And I guess the best way to show people is to do it through your own life and model that. And that's, I guess, what I'm really working towards. And I guess the big picture is to dissolve my company into a foundation that provides free mental health care for people, because I hate the thought that people need to pay to find a healthy mind. And, we're trapped in a body, but you're more trapped in your mind. And to be unwell in that sense is just to think of having to pay. And, I was doing some work with NDIS programs and things. And I see the rates, and it's important that people are paid accordingly. There's no doubt about that, because they provide an incredible service, but that has to come out of somebody's pocket. And yeah, long story short, I would like to dissolve my business to a foundation to find ways to provide free mental health care to people in whatever measure that looks like.
Yeah, that's cool. I think you've got the right, like, tool belt as well, right? Like, in your tool belt, you've got drive, determination, focus. And then you've also got the sadness, the fear, the anger, the depression. And they're actually beautiful things. Like they're really useful tools, right? And yeah, so man, I've got no doubt that you can get this done. Whatever you're gonna do, it's gonna be fucking huge.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Is your book out now, or is it still being written?
No, so I've written it, and it's actually been sent off to a publisher, and waiting to hear it's gone to the CEO and the board about the commercial viability of it. So waiting to see how that comes, but again, if that comes back as a no, that's fine. I'm actually reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad right now. And
oh, really?
And the author, he talks about how his book, no publisher would touch it for like 5-10 years or something crazy.
Wow.
And he went to a small publisher, he did it himself, and it's the #1 finance book of all time. So kind of gives me hope that if things don't work out, it's not the end of the road. Failure is not the end all be all, and success is never final. So
I think a similar thing happened with J.K. Rowling, didn't
it? Yeah. So you never know. And I'm a firm believer, and the more I experience, the more I realize that when things are meant to happen, they're going to happen, and you just got to keep improving yourself. And then when your opportunity comes, if you've done the work long enough, then you'll kick in the door and you'll be right where you want to be.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah. That's cool. What's your book about? Is this your story?
Yeah, a little bit. So basically what I do is it's 23 chapters long, which the first 9 or 10 are based on particular emotions. So we talk about reframing it and understanding how to use it. Cool. And then the latter half is just about what you need to do to succeed. So it's about the perseverance, the resilience, the understanding, the accepting, and which emotions are going to be most dominantly used in that. And I kind of take moments from my own life, even if I wasn't realizing what I was doing at the time. When you kind of pull yourself out of that situation, you can start to understand what you're doing. So I guess teaching people how to better understand their emotions, and then a bit of a roadmap to achieve the goals that you set.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, where can we and everyone find you? Are you on Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah. So everything's at Eric McAlister, one word, and then I have my business page up, which is the Acceptance Project. So yeah, have the website up, the-acceptanceproject.com. And that's where everyone can find me.
And you said before you're starting your own podcast soon, I think, was it?
Yeah, so we've gotten a couple episodes recorded, and hopefully this week we'll be able to get it up on iTunes and Spotify and all that good stuff, and let it out to the world. Yeah,
cool. And if there's just quickly, if there's one message that you want to put out into the world, what would that be?
Yeah, I think it's just keep going, but more importantly, trust yourself to be able to get through it. I think too often we look to external help, and all the answers are within us, and you're put in a position for a reason. So just believe in yourself and keep going.
Yeah, it's awesome. Man, that's so good. It's been so good talking to you, dude.
Hey, I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's been fantastic, and it means a lot that you thought to have me on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think this will really help a lot of people. We just want to get it out to as many people as possible. So yeah, if anyone got benefit from this, share it. Eric's got an amazing story, and listen to his podcast. His partner's really cool as well. She's a basketball player, and she's got a
Carly on
as well.
What's that?
We might have to get Carly on. Maybe you two together, or what?
Yeah, no, look, she's the one that she doesn't want to admit it, but she's a lot more insightful than I am, and she's also the better player too. So,
really?
I'll never hear the end of it.
Yeah,
I'll definitely tell her that.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks.
No, look, I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's been a great chat. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
See you guys later.